So, this is a little different from my usual content. I felt really called lately to share my story and what I've been through um, for some of my life, and specifically the last few years with my family. Um, I don't know how many parts this is going to be, but I'm really feeling called right now to share my story in hopes of helping other people, in hopes of empowering people to keep going, even through really tough situations. Um, so, I'm gonna start, from when I was really little. Um, my dad really came from a very toxic upbringing, a very toxic childhood. Um, and it's funny because my mom was the complete opposite. She came from like the most beautiful, loving, kind family. My grandfather, my mom's dad was a platoon chief on the North York Fire Department. My grandma was like a homemaker, a stay at home mom. And, a lot of this information are things that my mom has told me over the years. She passed away in 2022, but a lot of this information from these early days that I'm going to talk about um, are from my mom. So when my mom met my dad, my dad has always been a little bit troubled. And first of all, I just want to make it clear, I'm not here to bash my dad. I'm here to bring awareness to like mental abuse and really just speaking on how strong my mom had to be and how strong I had to be at the end of the relationship with my dad. When me and my brother were really little, we grew up with my dad drinking all the time. There were several occasions where, my mom used to do Sunday dinners all the time, and my dad and my brother would be constantly fighting. It would be like fist fights, like crazy, insane stuff happening. And my mom always would just like, I just want to have a normal Sunday dinner, and it was always just something. And my mom really put up with a lot. She went through a lot. My dad really put her and the rest of our family through a lot of stuff. And I understand, he came from a really broken family, a really toxic mother. His living situation my dad really went through a lot. And my father really is the epitome of like what happens when you don't heal and you pass on pain and trauma to your family, right? I'm gonna go back to probably around 2015. Was the first time when my mom found out that she had cancer. About a year before she found out that she had breast cancer, she found out that my dad was having an affair. Pretty open affair. Like people at his work knew, everybody knew. My mom's breast cancer resulted in having both of her breasts removed, her lymph nodes. Like it was a lot. It was a lot for her. She was in remission for about 4 or 5 years. And her stage 4, she then was actually diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I believe in like 2018, 2019, 20, somewhere around there. I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to talk about a little bit from there because that's when things really got out of control in my family. When my mom first found out my dad was having an affair, she kicked him out, and he came back and was like, I want to work through this, let's work through this. And he ended up coming back, and it was just the same toxic stuff. He was drinking all the time. He was, getting into physical altercations with my brother. There was one time where, I struggled with addiction for most of my life. And, there was a point when I was really bad in my addiction. My dad took my bedroom door off and, would just be in my face, coming at me, try to come at me. And I ended up in the hospital like multiple times, on pretty serious medication. I was diagnosed with bipolar, major depression, like all of this crazy stuff. And it really was stemming from the toxic environment that I was living in. And I, to this day, 100% know my mother got sick because of the toxicity of the environment that we were all living in. So after my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, I'll never forget, she was like telling, every time she'd come home from chemo, she'd be like, oh, this person passed away, this person passed away. And she was just an anomaly. Like, I don't know how that woman went as far as she did with stage 4 cancer. I truly believe it was for my niece and my nephew, her grandkids. I really believe that she really just wanted a little bit more time with them. But things really took a really dark turn in those years, and I ended up moving home from Toronto, and I was able to be home with my mom. I think I was working at the bank at the time, and I was able to go on leave. I was able to be there for my mom through a lot of this. So I'm gonna say, leading up to the COVID stuff, so right when COVID started happening, it's like my dad already had his separate life. He had his separate everything that he was doing at this point. My brother had already been, pretty much moved out of the house. Just a lot of really terrible things had transpired within my family. So a lot of the times it was just me and my mom at home, and I was helping her out with like cooking and stuff like that. And I really, for the last few years of my mom's life, I really just got to like hang out with her and just be around her. And I'm really grateful for that. So I'm gonna kind of jump to May of 2022. It was like May 29th. My mom had asked me to take the dogs to the vet with her. And I just had this horrible gut feeling. I was like, no, like, why do the dogs need to go? They don't need to go. Everything inside me was like, no, I don't want to go. And then as soon as we got to the vet, I had both the dogs in my hand. I had one dog in one hand and I had one dog in the other hand. And my mom was trying to get up the curb in the Zayres Plaza where I live, the grocery store plaza where the vet is, with her cane. And she tripped and she fell. And all I remember hearing is crack. It sounded like somebody hit a baseball. I heard the crack and I just remember my heart sank, and I was just like, I knew in that moment that something really bad had just happened. I went home. We got in the car because the vet appointment wasn't even at that time. We went home and I didn't know what to do. I knew something really bad had happened. My mom was just really really out of it, really not, just in a, you could tell she was just not okay. And I remember calling my dad, and my dad was like, what do you want me to do? Like, what am I going to do? And he ended up bringing us a pack of cigarettes home because I was losing my mind. And he left. He went back to work, which was a lot of what he did our whole life. He spent his time in bars. He spent his time, as far away from my mom and us as he could. And when he was around us, he was miserable. He really just, for somebody who stayed, like, I just really don't understand how he stayed feeling that way, like not even wanting to be around us, not even wanting to like be a part of the family. I have 30 seconds here. I'm gonna jump to part 2, you guys.